Good afternoon, and welcome to today's webinar, Practical Tips for Finding a Home in Barcelona. My name is Mariona Roca, and I'm very happy to be here with you on behalf of Barcelona City Council. This webinar is hosted by the City Council through Barcelona International Welcome, which is the initiative that offers services and resources to make the integration of the foreigners who come here to work and live in Barcelona. We try to make their integration easier. We give practical guidance, and also we offer a wide range of activities throughout the year. And next 25th of October, we have the highlight of the year, which is Barcelona International Community Day. This is the big event we celebrate every year. This year is 12th edition, where thousands of international residents meet and connect. And well, I invite you, all of you, to register for Barcelona International Community Day and to see you on Saturday, the 25th of October at the Maritime Museum. Well, thank you for joining this webinar about finding a home. We know that finding a home in a new city can be exciting, but also a real challenge. So our goal today is to provide clear, practical information to help you approach Barcelona's housing market with a little more confidence. Well, let me introduce you to today's speakers. We have Eduard Cabré. He is a housing policy consultant at the Barcelona Municipal Housing Institute, and he will give an overview of the city's main housing policies, support schemes, and other useful municipal resources. Hello, Eduard. Thank you for being with us. Gracias, Eduard. Benvingut.
Nice to be here with you.
And also our second speaker is Raf Jacobs. He is founder and managing director at Inspire Property Experts, and he will share practical tips for both tenants and buyers. Hello, Raf. Thank you for being here with us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, Eduard and Raf will give their presentations, and this will take about 40 minutes. And after the presentations, we will have 20 minutes to answer the questions. We'll open the floor for questions. We ask that you write your questions, please, in the Q&A option, okay, rather than the chat. Eduard and Raf, they will read the questions that are on the Q&A option. This is in the bottom of your screen. We'll collect the questions and we will answer them. Before we start, well, you have seen that this session is being recorded. Both the recording and the speaker's presentation slides will be sent by email to everyone who registered. So you will get the presentations and you will get the recording, okay? So let's start. And just before starting, let us know you a little better. I will ask you some questions. The first one, you can answer it in the chat, and the others, you will see a poll and you can vote. So first of all, we'd like to know, where are you from? So if you are so kind, you can write on the chat, what is your country of origin? Where are you from? Let's see. Okay. Well, we have, people from all over the world, all the continents, Canada, India, Brazil, Germany. Okay, yes, great. Okay, so the second thing we'd like to know about you is how long have you been living in Barcelona? Or maybe you haven't arrived yet. You can vote in this poll, okay? We can see, wow, many people haven't arrived yet. And okay, more than 50%, more than a year, but 24%, they haven't arrived. Yeah, good, interesting, thank you. And finally, the last question is about your interest in this webinar. Maybe you are interested in buying a flat, or maybe renting, or maybe you haven't decided yet. now we will launch this poll on this question. I don't know. Let's see if we can see this. Okay, now I can see the results. So 50-50, no? Well, 30-30, we can say. Okay, great. Thank you very much. So now we can start with the presentations. Eduard, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mariona. Let me share my screen. All right. Can you see it all right? Yes, okay. So hello everyone again. My name is Eduard Cabré. I work for the Municipal Institute for Housing and Renovation at the Barcelona City Council. And for today's webinar, I'm going to be covering a little bit about the housing context in Barcelona, mostly in retrospective, through our history. Then I'm going to briefly introduce some of the municipal housing programs and policies that the city is putting forward. And then I'm going to be covering a little bit about the regulation on the rental housing sector, as well as some data on housing sales in the city. These two last topics, Raf, is going to be covering in much more detail. So I'm just going to cover them quickly. So on the context of Barcelona, for you to understand a lot of the phenomena that you will experience when you arrive to the city, or if you already live here, you will have noticed. Spain is among the European countries with the least social rental housing stock. This is because for a long time, the public policies in housing have been to support access to home ownership. And as a result, public administrations, as well as other housing providers, have been left with very few social rental housing and flats. That means that we don't have a lot of tools to respond to the need that vulnerable households face, and also that a lot of people are competing for housing in the private rental housing stock, and particularly in rental. Another challenge or phenomena that we're experiencing is that of aging. An aging population means that our population is facing challenges in terms of accessibility, for example, but it also means that we have less people occupying the same number of housing units. We're also seeing a lot more singles, smaller households, because people are having less children. And all of that means that we need a lot more housing to serve the same amount of population. All of this to say that there are different aspects that contribute to putting pressure onto the housing market. And these are also some of the aspects that we're looking into. Now, moving into the housing policies that the city is putting forth, we're now in the middle of implementing our Pla Viure, which is our housing strategy for the current period. The city is mobilizing land and investing in the construction of public as well as social and affordable housing. And by 2027, we will have delivered around 3,000 public housing units. Another 5,000 will be under construction, and some 10,000 will have been planned in the zoning and will have started its project phase. All of this, of course, is part of a broader strategy to provide also market housing, but in terms of the social and affordable housing, these are the key figures. What is social and affordable housing in Barcelona? This is housing that is regulated and is particularly targeting middle and low income households. That's for the affordable housing portion. For the social housing portion, we're looking at lower income households and vulnerable groups, such as the elderly, also youth housing, as well as housing for the formerly homeless and extremely low income. This housing can be found in single purpose projects, as well as in mixed projects that combine rental for families, for example, as well as accommodations for the formerly homeless. But it can also be found in private buildings where we own some of the units. So you could find that in a privately owned building, some of the units are actually being used as social or affordable housing. Now, a lot of you won't probably use social and affordable housing in the city because you're not residents yet. When you become residents, you will eventually have the right to apply to some of this housing if your income is low enough. Of course, income is one of the criteria that would get you access to this sort of housing. But for most of you, what is more importantly, and I'm going to skip this is data on the number of units that we manage. We manage around 13,000 social and affordable housing units. But again, what I think is most relevant for you is the housing offices that the city council has across the city. These are offices that are open to the public. You can schedule an appointment and they will answer any questions that you have on housing, not only on accessing the social and affordable housing stock, but also on any matter that you're facing in the private rental housing stock or any other housing matter. They will attend you or serve you in person, but also online if that's your case. Now, moving on to the private rental housing stock, the first key concepts that I want you to be aware of are the different types of contracts that exist in Spain. One is what we call regular rentals. These are longer term rental contracts of a minimum of 5 to 7 years, depending on the type of landlord. For individual landlords, that is people that own a unit and rent it out, the minimum rental contract length is 5 years, whereas for legal entities or companies that manage rental housing, the minimum is 7 years. Another type of contracts are seasonal rentals. These are rental contracts of between 1 month and a year long, usually. And then we also have tourist apartments, which are, of course, targeting the tourist demand and which are usually for less than 1 month. And I'm going to be now dissecting each of these 3 types of contracts. For the regular rental housing contracts, what is most important to know is that as of today, rent regulation applies in the city. And so any contract that is signed under this typology will have its rental price capped. For most rental contracts under this typology, the price will be capped based on the previous rental contract for the same housing unit. So whenever you negotiate a contract, you can ask what was the prior price for that unit. They will have to inform it to you, and that should be the same price updated by inflation. So every year there's going to be some update on the price of the rent, but there shouldn't be a major change from 1 year to the next, particularly in between contracts when the tenant changes. Now, for units that are owned by large landlords, that is landlords that own 5 or more units, the price is capped at the average for the neighborhood in which the unit is located. For that, there is a public reference index platform that you can consult. So if you know that the unit you're interested in is owned by a landlord that owns a lot of housing units, you can go online, put the address, and check what the price for that unit would be. Another important aspect is that for this type of contracts, all broker fees should be paid by the property owner, by the landlord. You shouldn't be paying any fees to the broker. As a result of this policy, since 1 year of its implementation, so this was actually introduced at the end of 2023. So during 2024, we saw its impact, and by the beginning of 2025, we can say that the price of new contracts signed under this typology has decreased by more than 6%. And when you get access to this presentation, you will also be able to click on this fax sign at the end of the slide, and you will access our website, which shares a lot more detail on all of this information. The other type of contract that you will probably find when consulting for apartments is seasonal rentals. These type of rentals don't have a set duration. Actually, most of them are for in between 1 month and up to 1 year, but you can find longer seasonal contracts. The important aspect is that the length of this contract should be proportional to the need, the housing need that they are based on. You actually need to have a reason why you are using this sort of contract, either it be the duration of your work contract or the length of your studies in the city. But if you're expecting to live in Barcelona for longer, for a year or more, or if your contract is open-ended, you should be looking at the other type of contract, and you couldn't technically sign this type of contract. Seasonal contracts don't have any limit on their rent. So if you look online, you'll see that prices for these type of contracts are a lot higher. And another important aspect is that they don't allow you to register as residents in the unit with this contract. And so you wouldn't have access to public services that are dependent on being residents in the city. This is a very important aspect to consider. Now, if you go online and you consult any online platforms, you will realize that most offers online refer to these type of contracts. And as of today, most longer term rental contracts, the ones I was telling you about before, can only be found in real estate agencies in the city. So I really encourage you to go to some of these offices and get directly in touch with them. Now, the third type of contracts are tourist apartments. These are not technically rental contracts, as the type of tenancy is different, technically different, and probably most of you won't be using this sort of accommodation, probably only for the first days that you're in the city. But I believe it's important for you to know that since 2017, the city froze the number of units that are licensed to operate as tourist apartments. Today, there are around 10,000 units that can be rented out as tourist apartments. We are chasing illegal tourist units. So if you ever use this sort of unit, you should check that they have a license, and you should ask for them for this license. And I think it's also important to know that our mayor has committed to extinguish all tourist apartments in the city by 2028. So eventually we shouldn't have any more tourist apartments in the city, which is a way to actually mobilize all these 10,000 units to the regular housing stock. Now, really quickly moving on to the homeownership sector, and Raf is going to be talking more about this, but I just want to share some of the areas in the city where the city council is moving to develop new land and change the zoning to allow for more development to occur. So if you're familiar with the city, these are some pretty well-known areas. Some of them are close to major infrastructure like train stations, the 22 Ad District, which is a former industrial area that is moving to become the innovation hub in the city. So these are some of the areas where you see a lot of new construction happening. But to be honest, a lot of the selling units in the city are secondhand. So if you're looking to buy a house in the city, you will see that a lot of the units are secondhand and might need some renovation. So just be aware of that. Another aspect, of course, to take into account is pricing. Prices for homes in Barcelona have increased quite significantly in the past few months. And of course, in some neighborhoods, housing is more expensive than in other neighborhoods. So if you're familiar with the city, you will notice that neighborhoods that are closer to the sea are in the city center, or are closer to the Sarrià Sant Gervasi or Les Corts districts. These are more expensive than in other neighborhoods in the city. And here in the source, at the bottom of the images, you see Barcelona.cat, which is our statistics office, where you can consult a lot of these data. And I think I'm going to leave it at that, and I will pass the floor to Raf. And any questions that you have, please feel free to use all of the information that you will find on the slides and on the facts. And of course, you can use the Q&A here on the Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you, Eduard. Okay, let's go with Raf.
Thanks, Eduard, for this overview. When I speak to people in the international community every day, I think I realize that both renting and buying is complicated today in Barcelona. I will speak from very practical experience. My goal is to, I hope that by the end of the session, you've learned something. Maybe you think about certain things in a different way. And I hope that that helps you to take better decisions, informed decisions. Smart buying isn't luck. It's a strategy. And in the market in Barcelona today, it's complicated. So to survive, you've got to have a strong strategy. It means it's a decision as well. You can't just leave it to luck. Let me use, and everybody understands sports very well. I mean, in sports, nobody remembers who ends second at the end of a race, right? And in the property market today, it's the same. There's going to be one winner. There's not too many properties, a lot of buyers. So how do sports people win a game? It's preparation. It's a methodology. It's a good coach. I'm going to give you loads of examples on this. Just a bit of context for people who might not know myself. I've seen people in the chat group that I know that we've talked to. We, a buyer agent, have helped several hundred of international buyers in Barcelona. All our clients are international, more or less 50-50 residents, and the other part is non-resident. We look at all of the city, but also the coast in Catalonia, but also all kinds of price ranges. We have people that buy 300K properties, people that buy properties of $1.5 million. There's a very diverse mix of people, first-time young buyers, people who buy second residences. It's all in there. I believe a lot in sharing knowledge, and that's what you find on our YouTube channel, where you have like over 1 million views. Feel free to take a look at that part there. Where we make an impact is in the international community. That's our core strength. We recently got awarded as well, just before summer in June, by EU Business School for the impact we make in real estate for the national community, help people make better decisions. So, having gone through hundreds of transactions, the reality about the market today is that within a day's time, a lot of people will search and view the same property that you love. There's only one person who will get that property. That's why today, preparation is more important than ever. And I'll give you very practical tips in a minute. You need new reference points. And for those of you who have been thinking about buying a property 3 years ago, didn't buy, and you're thinking again today about buying, a lot of things have changed, but the important things have changed. The market is a lot faster. There is much more buyers. Some agencies are a bit desperate, and sometimes information is not very transparent. And we see people making mistakes just because of how the market has changed today. If you fail to understand the market today, it's easy to make those mistakes. And we'll try and give you tips to avoid some of those. What's happening? It's very simple. It's like any market, but today we have demand, which is a lot bigger than the supply of good properties. We are, from my opinion, in a boom scenario. The market is going up significantly. We have seen price increases in Barcelona across kind of all neighborhoods, around 10% in the last 12 months. That is very significant. Why is that happening? Why do we have this situation? Partially, there's many reasons, but interest rates are very low again. Our buyers are signing mortgages under 2% fixed interest rate. That's incredible. But also today, because the rent is so high in Barcelona, if you look at the mortgage payment that you would have, let's say, if you have a 1,200 euro rent per month, you might be able to buy this similar property for a 900 euro mortgage per month. And that's, of course, a trigger for demand. More people want to change from renting to owning a property. The housing deficit is evident. You see properties disappear very quickly from listing portals. The deficit is there, but I think it's also increasing because it's not easy to create additional new properties. It's slow, it's bureaucratic, it's expensive, there's politics involved, etc. So we think, in my opinion, there's going to be further price increases in and around Barcelona, in Spain in general, but we talk about Barcelona in this case here. Let's look at some data. Without going into detail, these are the last 15 years. Property prices went up by average 71%. You see here the different districts, where you see at the bottom now Baris, which is in the very north of Barcelona. Historically has always been the cheapest district. Sarrià, the most expensive, and all the other districts in between. But you see that the trend line is very, very similar across the different districts. But a 71% increase is very significant over 15 years. And this is average. Average means the very good properties, the average properties, but also the bad properties. So that's an average. It means that good properties, meaning very nice design, good locations, a lot of natural light, maybe a terrace, have gone up by more than 71% in this time frame. But how is the market then today? Because this is a historic trend. What do we see today in Barcelona? There's a color code here. Green is the most expensive. Again, Sarrià, now Baris here in the north is the cheapest area today. To give you an idea, in our Baris we have prices, average prices, and most people in that we work with, they don't want an average property. They want it better than average property, but average price here is around 2,800 euro per square meter. If we go to Horta, Guinardó, we go to 3,800 per square meter. If we go here to the Gothic, the Ciudad Vella, the Gothic area, you go to 4,800 per square meter. Las Corts here is around 6,000 per square meter. Eixample, 6,200 approximately, but there's a lot of difference as well within Eixample. And here's Sarrià Sant Gervasi, even 6,600, again, average prices. We see for people who live here, the residents, it's very personal. We see a clear trend towards the second tier area, so away from the very center, simply because you buy more property there, more square meters for a lower price. And non-residents, they like the center. They like Eixample, Sant Gervasi, Tres Torres, etc. But it's different because non-residents, Americans, Brits, different nationalities, they buy for different drivers. They don't need housing. They have a house already where they live. They're at the top of the Maslow pyramid, and they want lifestyle. So, and they want to pay. They are ready to pay for these locations. What does this mean for you if you're looking to buy a property today? I recommend you to be flexible in terms of what you're looking for. Flexible in terms of neighborhoods, because you see here prices change significantly by neighborhood. Expand your neighborhood by 20, 30%. Go discover neighborhoods during the day, in the weekend, but also at night. But also should be flexible as well on your property requirements. Be open, consider a property that needs a little renovation. You have much more options and you can add value to the properties. Because I believe that less people will buy properties to renovate them and put them on the market because of the legislation, the fiscal implications for people who do that. So keep that in mind. And so flexibility is important. Go a bit beyond your comfort zone. And we see too many people that say, we were looking at a property last year, we didn't buy, and what we see today is worse than what we saw last year, and it's more expensive. And the only thing I can say is, yes, you're right. It's a correct observation, but if you don't draw the right conclusions, you become very frustrated because you will not find the property that you saw a year ago or 2 years ago because it doesn't exist anymore. Okay. Last point regarding the market. Prices are going up faster in the second tier areas, simply because demand is moving to those areas. And there we see 14, 15% price increases in the last 12 months versus closer to 10% more in the center. Let's tangibilize this. An example. This is what you get for 365K in Poble-sec. On the prime street, I think, Calle Blay, 1 bedroom, balcony, small terrace, everything as it is. Furnished, decorated, and everything. That's examples of people who bought a property, owned it for several years, enjoyed it, and decide to sell it now. If you want more space and you go, for instance, to 2 double bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and 83 square meters, a bit larger already, also with furniture included, very close to the Paseo Colón, so facing the water. You still have a price range. You don't have the design here. You don't have maybe the nice quiet street. No, you don't have that much light, but you still have the old beams and a decent renovation. So that's an off-market property, by the way, something that becomes important in today's market. Properties disappear quickly. We know the owner wants to sell, but it's not listed anywhere. So that's powerful as well. If you look for properties. Now, we looked at the trend from the last 15 years. We look at what's happening today. So what's the future going to bring? More price increases. This is a report from Casa Bank. They have very good reports about the industry. The prediction they make is 10.8% price increases this year, another 6% next year. This is for all of Spain. This is not Barcelona. In my opinion, Barcelona has all the potential for an increase this year. So January, December, 10-12% is very reasonable. I don't see immediate reasons for a slowdown. It might be something around 7-8% next year. We don't know. We don't have a crystal ball, but it is significant. So preparation is key. If you just go on the market is fast, good properties sell quickly, and you're not ready, then you will miss the opportunities because other people will buy it first. Another consideration here is a lot of people wait and search for a long time and they never decide because they don't find that perfect property. There's a cost of waiting as well, a cost of hesitating. I'll take one example, scenario 1. Imagine a 400,000 euro property. If the prices go up by 10% in the next year, it's another 40K that you would have to spend next year if you were to postpone your decision by a year. But you also need to rent for one additional year. Let's say you pay a bit more than 1,000 a month, so 15K per year for average apartment. In total, the cost of postponing is 55,000 euros. All right. Now, if you were to have these 55,000 available today, and you use that as a down payment for a mortgage, you put leverage on your savings on this 55, and even at 30%. At a 30% down payment, it's not 30% loan to value, sorry. You get an additional purchase budget of 183,000, or you lose this purchase power if you don't do it. And of course, if you go to more expensive properties, the numbers only become much bigger. So timing is important. Divide the numbers by 12, right? So you have monthly numbers, and it's several thousand euro per month. I don't say you need to rush. I never say that, but you need to be aware of that. Implications for you, because we have practical tips, right? The very first thing to do is understanding your financials, your financial possibilities. Can you buy cash without a mortgage? Do you need a mortgage? If you want a mortgage, what exactly are your options? That's the very first thing we do with every single buyer. Excels, numbers, simulations. But 70,000 euro down payment, what is the maximum purchase price? Assuming I've paid the purchase tax, the notary, the appraisal, etc. Okay, it's very important. So, how to prepare better? How to prepare? Where to start? 2 angles. One is you need to know how things work and don't work in Spain. And I do a lot of webinars, and I run polls as well in the webinar. I ask people things about how the market works, and typically around 50% has a fundamentally wrong understanding of how the market works. And the key element is the realtors, the people who sell the properties. They work for the seller. They don't work for you. Their job is to sell, not to protect you. Those realtors have no obligation to give you all information about the property. If they know there's a problem with the technical structure of the building, if they know there are issues within the homeowner association, or if they know that the sellers are getting divorced and they have a kid, and it might be difficult to get them out, or they have debt on the property, etc., etc., they don't have to tell you. There's poor transparency, but at the same time, You lack information, but you need a fast decision because a good property sell quickly. And then I think the options that the market offers are very limited because you can take a lawyer, but with a lawyer, you can perfectly buy the wrong property. The lawyer looks at the contract, not at is this the right purchase. And be mindful, there's a lot of people out there that say they're going to advise you as buyers, but check what they've done before. Check if they've ever bought a property themselves, how many people they've helped, right? That is how the market works. I got a full webinar on our YouTube channel, 1 hour, just talking about those topics. So feel free to discover that. Examples here of things that are that we found recently: a property that's not properly registered in the rent registry, so it's not officially registered. Legal fights between neighbors and the homeowner association, etc. That's how the market works. The second part here is how three things that, in my opinion, are non-negotiable. I mentioned this: the pre-approvals on your financing, and it's not only to be realistic; it's also because you need those pre-approvals as soon as possible. If you like a property tomorrow and you don't have your pre-approvals, how are you going to make a confident offer? How are you going to sign an ARAS contract, a deposit contract, and pay 10% to the sellers if you're not sure about financing? Because the civil code in Catalonia says that if you don't get financing, you can get out of your contract. But many sellers, they don't want that. So they have clauses that say that you can't use that clause, and that if you don't get financing, you lose a deal. So our lawyers work on exit options to get a deal negotiated that is protecting you. Neighborhood, and that's true for renting as well. Expand. And then in terms of the requirements, the property features, open to renovation, maybe consider it if there is no second bathroom. Additional funds. We see more and more people when they buy, they get some help from their parents. Sometimes a sensitive topic to talk about in the family, but people don't talk about it, I think, with their friends maybe, but I see it a lot every day. So keep those points in mind, and you will be better prepared for the market, or to win in the market. If you want, we discuss buyer plans. We give our opinion. We help people throughout the whole process. There's a QR code here. You can send us, or at the end I will give the QR code. You can send us a buyer wish list through our website, but we only respond to people who send a complete form. Right? So if you just send us a few data points, it's a waste of time. We only take on a limited number of customers. But if we believe we can fundamentally help you, I will set up a meeting with you. And again, the very first thing would be to look into your financials, because that's a go or no-go decision. And conscious of time, I'm going to wrap up here. The process, we said, start with good foundations. The start of a buying process is not to look at properties. The start of a buying process is what we said before, what you see here. The second phase is really searching the market, filtering properties, negotiating, having the right benchmarks, and get a reservation contract. It's a very weak protection. And then you do the due diligence. All due diligence, legal protection, get a mortgage properly approved. The ARAS contract, you pay 10%. And the last big step is going to the notary. That's when you get your keys and a title of ownership. So for those who want to connect, feel free to connect on the channels like LinkedIn if you want to follow us, watch clients that talk on camera about the challenges they faced. And if you want to discuss your plans, you send me your buyer wish list. I've got tips for tenants as well, but I think I will use them in the Q&A because there will be questions related to that. And I'm going to hand over back to Mariona now.
Okay, thank you, Raf. Thank you very much for your advice. We have a few questions on the Q&A box. So if you, Eduard and Raf, if you can open the box and see from the top, we can start.
I can maybe let Raf read through them, and I have a couple that I've picked and you can answer.
So I'll start from the very top. Let me see how many questions. Okay.
I've answered some in written already.
Okay. So people, you can still use the Q&A button to send your questions, and I will try and respond to them. First question is from Saulo. If the interested tenants don't make 3 times the rent as income, but want to use an avalista, that's a question. It's going to depend on the situation and what the agency or what the owners want as well, because we don't do rental, but as far as I know, there is no specific regulation regarding how much avalistas should guarantee. It's going to be a negotiation, I think, and selling yourself as a good tenant with a good profile to the agency or to the owners. The renting conditions force me to consider buying my new home in Barcelona. I'm here to work, Sami. So yeah, that I hope from what we explained that you have some guidance there. But it's a very half of our clients they rent today and they decide to buy. And certainly what you need, Sami, is you need to have a fixed contract ideally, but you can also be a freelancer and autonomous, no problem. You cannot be in a probation period if you want a mortgage. It's not possible. And ideally 6, 9, 12 months tenure in a company is going to make it a lot easier for you if you want to buy. Again, step 1 is financial simulations. What can we do if we find that letting agents want to charge you money? They should not. It's forbidden by law. Eduard, what would you say?
I mean, what I have to admit is that this clause in the law doesn't or wasn't passed with the right tools to, in a way, make sure that it was fully implemented. So as of today, the only possibility would be to make a formal complaint and go to the courts if, they don't change course. What I would say is that the best thing for you would be to go to one of our housing offices where we have lawyers that can assist you in these situations. And of course, you should let the rental agents know that you know the law and that they shouldn't be behaving in that way.
I said in the beginning, we hope that you learn some new insights today. So if you talk to that agency and you tell them, look, I know that you can't do this, it's not legal, they might stop right away. They might change their approach right away as well.
Yeah, the next question I read before, and I understood that I made not a mistake, but I left something out from my presentation, which is that for the long-term rental contracts, these 5 to 7 years, the minimum length is for the landlord, for the owner, but the renter can break the contract beforehand. There's usually a minimum period that you should stay in the unit that can be for up to 1 year. But after that, you can leave, later on. You just need to let the landlord know ahead of time, usually 1 to 2 months before you leave. But if you are only staying for 3 years, say, you can still sign a 5-year contract. And then by year 3, you can just decide to leave the unit.
Okay. I'm not sure the questions changed here. The order of questions changed here. So I'm going to continue going through it, but I'm not sure if I go in the right direction. There's a question here around real estate agents asking you to pay 3% as a buyer. It's difficult to avoid. They can do it. And it's agencies like Casa, for instance. They do that very commonly. It looks more expensive for you. It's not necessarily. We buy a lot of properties through such agencies. And as long as the overall price is okay, then it's fine. And that's our role to benchmark that. Is the total price, property price, plus a 3% still and plus a VAT still good? And sometimes it's still very good. Could you recommend a good real estate agency for long-term rentals? Michael, very, very complicated because there is, I think there's about 200 interested tenants per long-term rental property. Be online, but you won't find many properties online. Talk to agents in the area where you want to live. Go and see them. Give them a piece of paper with your requirements and sell yourself. Explain them your income, your savings, etc. that they see stability and they see low risk. Oops, where am I? Sorry, I'm just going through the questions here to see where we.
There is one question that I saw. Let me see. Yeah, so Brita is saying, it's not a question, it's a statement that given that there is a down payment made in a rental contract, she believes landlords should have enough money to cover for any costs that, maintenance costs that come up. Of course, that is the case. Any major renovations to the unit or maintenance should be done by the landlord, and only those that are as a result of your misbehavior, so to speak, should be paid by renters. Another important aspect is that rental down payments are legally supposed to be deposited in a public registry called Incasol. So the landlord is charging you, but at the end of the day is depositing this money in this public deposit and then rescuing it to give it back to you when the rental contract is over. Just be aware of that, because if the landlords don't deposit the deposit, then things can happen at the end of the contract relationship.
Yeah, okay. See a question from Laura. She's asking, are there any good classes, I think courses you mean, on buying property? Go to our YouTube channel. I share a lot of tips. There's detailed webinars there. I've put a link to your question. You see it in the presentation as well. There's a lot of good information. It's free. Kazi, if I'm unsure whether I will stay in the city for long term or not, is buying still a good idea? Because in case I need to relocate, sell, etc. You have now some market data, Kazi. You see now how the market is expected to continue to grow. In such a market, if you rent, the money is gone to a landlord, that's clear. And after another 2 years, you have nothing in exchange. If you buy, even with a mortgage, you have a property in exchange as an asset. And I think that is, in my opinion, if you can financially do it, it's something very strong, gives you options for the future.
If I may, Raf, to Kazi's question, because I think she's implying that she might need to sell if she relocates.
Yes.
Something to be aware is that there is, of course, tax whenever there is a sale. So you will pay the tax when buying, and then when selling, the buyer is going to pay that tax. But of course, there is transaction costs that you should bear in mind. So if you're thinking of buying and then selling 1 year after, it might prove to be a bit more challenging financially. Usually it's better if you then wait 2 or 3 years so that market prices make up for the transactional costs.
Yeah, in my opinion, when you take a real estate decision, also when you decide to continue renting, look at a time horizon of 3 to 5 years at least, and then things make a lot of sense if you run the numbers. And then the conclusion might be for you keep renting, or it might be you better buy. Fran, property price increases at 10%, but salary in Spain is barely increasing to beat the inflation, etc. Government imposed ban on golden visa property investment. How do you see the demand for property boosting up? Through golden visa, I mean people who buy 500k plus properties, they can't get the residence anymore. Impact is very, very small. That was only a very small fraction of the total number of transactions. Keep in mind, we have this year probably around 720,000 property transactions across Spain. Golden visa were a few thousand. So it's a drop in the water. Demand is going up more when more companies are establishing in Barcelona. Then international companies are coming here. They create employment. They hire international talent. And let's not forget that many people that work for international companies, they have salaries that are significantly above the average Spanish salaries as well, which then also give them more financing capacity to take on that. But demand is there, and I don't see immediate reasons for demand going down. In parallel, supply is very low, and potentially even. I don't think it will go down. It went down a bit, but yeah. If parents help with property purchase, do we have to declare it as a tax gift? There is two options for this. Either it's a donation, and then you need to declare it in Spain if you are a resident in Spain. If you're not resident in Spain, Spanish fiscality does not apply to you. The other option is what some people do, is setting up a loan between family members, but then that implies that you give the money back at some point in time in the future. The usual concept is a donation, and then in function of the amount and your country of origin, etc., there is a donation tax, but then the money is super clean and you can use it. You can transfer it to your account here and you buy the property, and the property is only in your name. It's very, very common. My husband has a permanent contract. I'm freelancing, but we don't have a seasonal contract. Okay, not sure what the question is. I'll move on. What is the cheapest down payment you can get on the outskirts of Barcelona for a property which is yet to be renovated? If the question refers to how much money you need to put down to get a mortgage for this type of property, if you are a resident, fiscal resident in Spain, you can normally finance 80% of the purchase price, meaning you need to put down 20% of the property price plus the purchase tax, which is around 10%, and cost is 10% and a few thousand euros. So count on 30% that you need as a down payment to buy such a property. If the property needs renovation, it's difficult to get financing for the renovation cost itself. You need to pay that from your own savings. But we work with some banks that also finance our renovation project, actually in a pretty flexible way. Slightly higher interest rate, but still very attractive if you see that dream property and want to buy it. Is it a good long-term strategy to buy a property as a primary residence using a mortgage, live in it for several years and sell it in order to upgrade to a better home, financing the upgrade? Yes, absolutely. That's what a lot of people do. You start small. When you're in your 30, you buy a one-bedroom property, and then once you start maybe to build a family, you want 2 or 3 bedrooms. Maybe you want to be outside the center, or you want a garden or a pool. I don't know. So you would be surprised actually how many people do not have to sell it. They can keep that property because if it goes up in value, you can sometimes increase the mortgage again on the initial property. Use that to finance part of your, let's say, upgraded property. Yes, certainly possible. I'm planning to visit several estate agents. How can I tell which ones are reliable? In other words, what are the green and red flags? I think you replied here in written already. It's hard, and there's no general rule. Keep in mind what I told you. Agents work for the seller. The job is to sell, not to protect. That's very important. If the property has reached its maximum lifetime, will the property be demolished or abandoned? Does government help to renovate the property? No, the property is yours forever and ever. It's not like in some countries where it's like 99 years or so. No, it's forever, and you can use it. You can leave it empty. You can rent it. You can sell it again. It's entirely up to you.
We don't have. much more
Okay.
time, Raf. Well, we can have 5 more minutes. I know we have a lot of questions, but we can
Okay.
answer a few
Do
more.
I continue to go through it as fast as I reasonably can?
Yes, I think if
We
it's
can also
1
type
minute.
the answers. I've been typing some answers to
Okay.
get quicker. There is one that I would want to really quickly answer to, which is Kutan's about ICF. There is now a program in Catalonia to cover for the down payment in through a a zero interest loan by the government. This is, I believe, restricted to residents, so you would have to prove that you are a resident and have been for a minimum of a certain number of years. And the other aspect to bear in mind is that this is conditional to the unit becoming permanently affordable housing, which means that down the road, if you wanted to rent it out or sell it, you would have to do it at a below market price that is, capped by law. So, it's quite a technical program, but if you're interested, you can find more information online.
Okay. Harry, is the law that will tax 100% property prices for non-EU citizens going to happen? Short answer is, I think nobody knows. In my opinion, I can't see the government getting away with that. I don't think so. But other things have happened in Spain that nobody expected. But I would be very surprised. What about buying, Salome? What about buying cheap apartment which is occupied, so squatters? Is it possible to vacate the apartment, or what is the point of selling or buying this type of property? That's what we call a more high risk transaction. Some people like to invest, let's say they like to do that. You pay less for the property for sure, but if you pay less, you assume the risk. It's very simple. It's like any investment in the world: lower price, higher risk. Yes, you can get squatters out, sometimes easy, sometimes not so easy. It will in all cases cost you money. We've quite some experience with those cases. But it's if it's the first property you buy, I wouldn't do it. If you bought 3 and you want to buy a 4th one, maybe you can take on the risk. I see ads for 100% mortgages. What are the requirements? Tristan, very difficult. It can happen, but it's very complicated. And I'm not sure if I would recommend you to take on 100% mortgage, because it means that you have a lot of risk in case you lose a job or your income goes down for whatever reasons. 80%, 85, 90% is very high already. If you need 100%, think twice if you actually want to buy and do that. It's very complicated, and only a few banks will do it in a few exceptions. Are there any local banks that will offer housing mortgage to non-lucrative visa holders? Absolutely, yes. Anyone, you can get a mortgage in Spain if you live here, but also as a non-resident. If you work, if you don't work, it's not dependent on your visa. Yes, the mortgage conditions will change now. You might get, instead of 80%, you might get 70% financed. Maybe they ask you to have an additional type of insurance, but yes, you can get, as I said, half our clients are non-residents, and some of them are resident or non-lucrative visa, everything. No problem at all. Again, step 1, mortgage simulations. If you contact us, I'm happy to look into your data and connect you to our mortgage broker. I'm not sure if I missed questions here.
There's one on rental agents, how to know if they're reliable or not. I don't know if you cover that, but I believe there is a public registry of real estate agents online. I'm trying to find the link, but I could not find it now. But if you make a good search online, you should find the website where you have all of the officially registered agents. And then, of course, within this group, you can find very different sorts of agents. But if they're registered, it means that they fulfill with a minimum criteria.
In adding to what Eduard says, rental agents, they cannot charge a tenant anymore. They need to charge the owner. The owners often don't want to pay, so they get sometimes a small commission. If they publish a property, they get 200 phone calls in 48 hours. They get another 100 emails. It's very, very difficult to manage. So the reality is, because there's no properties on the market in this segment, that it has become a casting. You got to prepare for it. You got to dress yourself up. You get to prove that you're a good tenant. But the reality is that the agents will go for the best prepared tenant that gives them the best impression, the lowest risk to the owner. So again, preparation here. I'm checking if there's more questions.
We have a lot of questions still. Let's go for a last one, maybe, because now it's 5 minutes after 5. Let's go for a last question, and we will have to finish.
Okay.
There's
just checking which one I didn't see.
Yeah, there's another question on short-term rentals, whether there are fines if they're not used the way they should. There are currently no fines, but there will be in the next month. So the government has already announced that they will be putting together new mechanisms to chase the bad use of these sort of contracts. So just be aware of that.
Okay, then, well, I'm afraid that we have to leave it here. Thank you very much to Eduard and Raf, because I think it has been very useful for everyone. As I said at the beginning, on the 25th of October, we are celebrating Barcelona International Community Day. There will be, I think, a couple of sessions that about mortgage, about housing as well. So maybe you can have another opportunity to get informed about housing in Barcelona. And
I'll be speaking live there at the International Community Day.
Yes.
So you can meet me in person there as well.
Exactly. And you know that we will send the recording of the session. We will send the slides that Eduard and Raf shared, and you will receive it in a few days. So I think we have to close the webinar. Thank you again. Thank you for attending, to everyone. We hope it has been useful. And well, we hope to see you in other activities that we organize at Barcelona International Welcome. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon.
Thank you for joining, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.